My name is Molly, and I wanted to come on here today to talk about how to alchemize your perspective of life. What we know is that your reactions shape your future. They shape your ability to create your own reality and your ability to change experiences that could be extremely disheartening into moments of extreme growth. So if you are able to alchemize your perspective, which basically just means to change it from a state that is not able to support you into a state that encourages your growth, you will be able to see tremendous things change in your life. And this is what people mean when they say to manifest. I'm trying to adjust my seat just right here. So we'll see how this works. Okay, I think that's okay. And in order to do this, what is so important, the first thing, the number one most important thing in alchemizing your perspective is you need to understand that what you resist persists. So I think a lot of people come into a mindset of seeking out a positive outlook for their life. Maybe they've watched Abraham Hicks's videos here on YouTube, or just kind of hear in general this whole idea that we shape our own reality through our perception. And so they have a thought, they have an event happen to them, and they react in a certain way. They have a feeling in their body, and they think, oh no, that's bad, because if I have that reaction, then my reaction is going to create my reality. And so I have to resist that, right? And if you remember what I just said, what we resist persists. And so I think a huge key of letting go and surrendering to this process that many miss, and it's just the way that our minds work. This is something that is just going to happen. It's kind of illogical for our brains to understand this, really, because it's a catch-22. But in order to change your perspective, you have to accept your perspective. It's kind of like, if you know anything about Alcoholics Anonymous, it's like step one is like admitting that your life has become unmanageable. And it's like, how is my life going to get more manageable if I go into this program and say my life is unmanageable? Like, that's not helping anything. But they say in those sort of programs that you have to kind of have that it kind of surrender, that kind of admission of where you're at, to be able to take accountability, to be able to accept that you need help and support. And then that's where the change comes in. And so think about it from this perspective with your perspective. If you have a perspective on something that is really conditioned by your subconscious mind throughout all of these experiences that you've had, which involve lots of fear or lots of sadness, lots of depression. And again, I'm not saying that these feelings are bad feelings. I don't think any feelings are bad feelings. I think every feeling has a purpose, and it is a catalyst for growth. I think all feelings come back to love. So when we're feeling sadness, when we're feeling anxiety, it is all just a reflection of where we are missing a perception of love there. And so those feelings help us to come back into alignment with that. So when that happens, when we have these subconscious patternings in our brain that have something happens, like I'll give an example of, you have a bill comes in the mail that is a lot of money, and you don't think in your mind that you have enough money to pay for that bill. And because you've had experiences maybe growing up or in your adulthood where you weren't able to pay for something, and that led to some really unfortunate things happening, that subconscious patterning tells you that that's going to happen again. So you panic inside, you have a fear response, and then what people will often make the mistake of doing is you clench down upon that feeling and you go, oh no, I'm going to be okay, and I'm not even going to listen to this feeling right now. I'm just going to trudge on. But what they're actually doing is they're suppressing that feeling. They're not processing it. They're not alchemizing their perspective. What they're doing is they're assuming that by ignoring their perspective is going to magically go away. Or worse, they think that their mind can somehow change their perspective. So they try to think their way out of it. That doesn't work with perspective, because perspective It comes from a deep ingrained belief and a feeling in the body. So what you'll often notice is then that stress will be translated into another way. Now you don't have thoughts about the bill because you're pushing them really far out, but you've got this like lingering stomach ache and you don't know what's going on with that. Or you have this compulsion to drink all the time to avoid those feelings coming up around the bill, right? And so you're just kind of playing whack-a-mole with the feeling. You're not alchemizing it. So how the heck do we alchemize the feeling, right? So thinking about the analogy of something that we're trying not to think about, like don't think about the pink elephant. If you've heard that analogy, all you're going to do is think about the pink elephant. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to give yourself full permission to feel whatever you're feeling. I really like to add to this like an understanding of it makes sense that I would feel this way. You know, I've had experiences in the past that have led me to have this feeling. So it's logical. My brain is trying to protect me right now. My brain is doing the best job it can. And then you notice how I'm kind of compartmentalizing apart our brain part of self with other parts of self. So sometimes we get completely identified with the mind, which is part of why it's kind of loud. It's kind of why we want to separate ourselves from the feeling, because we think that we are like, or we want to suppress, we want to suppress that experience because we think that we are that experience. But when we can kind of get some distance from it and we go, oh, it makes sense that I'm thinking this way. It's not that you are that way. It's just that your brain is having a thought. Your brain is doing the best that it can and bringing in. This is why sometimes I think people get a lot of help from therapy, but I think there is some limits to how long that this sort of support can go on for. But the first times that they go to therapy and the therapist will say, oh, well, that might be connected to the time that your dad said this to you or whatever, something like that, right? So those sort of connections are helpful to an extent. You have to actually apply that knowledge. But once you have that knowledge and you can say, all right, I'm giving myself permission to have this experience and I'm actually going to go a bit deeper into the experience. I'm going to really feel that fear. I'm going to really feel that sadness. Maybe I'm even going to cry a little bit. Maybe I'm going to journal about it. One of my favorite things to do when it comes to fear specifically is thinking about the absolute worst thing that could happen. This bill is going to bankrupt me and I'm going to be homeless and I'm not going to have enough food to eat. I'm not going to have enough food to eat, so I'm going to starve. I'm going to starve, and so I'm going to die. Usually our fears come down to death. Whatever it is, it usually comes back to some survival instinct. And that's why when it comes to alchemizing your perspective, you do really need to have some spiritual basis of what you believe in that really matters, that you really value in your life, that you can come back to. All right, well, if that's what's going to happen, then I'm going to really focus today on enjoying all the meals that I can eat right now. When I eat these strawberries, I'm going to really focus on how delicious they are. Notice how the perspective has changed, not by trying to force it away, not by trying to say I'm not going to starve, but by saying, since that could happen, since I could starve, might as well really enjoy my meals today. I'm so sorry about the loud traffic. There's nothing I can do about it. The best I can do is just pause when they come by. In any case, so once you have that perspective shift, what happens in your feeling state, and remember how I said your perspective is connected to the feeling and the subconscious, right? So you start to generate this feeling of ease because you now realize the level of powerlessness, surrender that you have over that initial experience. This will also be really effective if you've just cried really hard about something that's made you really sad or whatever. You have a natural calming effect that comes over your body because naturally you're releasing chemicals from your brain when you cry to lower the amount of adrenaline or some sort of chemical that is reached its peak in your brain. That's why we actually have the urge to cry, if you didn't know. So letting all of that stuff come naturally, that's the first step. So a lot of people try to skip this step and get to the end. You can't get to the end if you skip this step. So greeting whatever feeling is there, whatever experience of the perspective is there with loving kindness and awareness. And what happens is we kind of create this bubble around it so that we aren't the reaction, we are observing the reaction. And then from this higher point of view where we're observing the reaction starts to take on a lot less power. And this is where I think the alchemy starts to take its place, right? We start to kind of get a little footing of wow, this reaction is just something that I'm having, kind of like having a cold. I'm not a cold. This cold is going to pass, and I'm going to see that everything's going to be okay. I'm going to see that I will be able to pay this bill. I'm going to see that I will be able to enjoy food. And by opening up that experience of ease, Now we're able to, like I said, enjoy the strawberries instead of trying to suppress. Remember in the first example I said, then you get this tight stomach ache or some other somatic reactions. And we're just kind of like numbing out and going into tunnel vision of just, as long as I just don't think about that thing, just don't think about that thing. Oh, that thing's back. I got to make sure I'm not thinking about that thing. And all you're doing is not thinking about the thing. So you're kind of thinking about the thing, right? So when you've opened up this ease, that's where mindfulness and presence gets a chance to come in. I believe that mindfulness and presence is really what brings in shifting of our subconscious patterning, because we start to give our bodies and our minds a new experience after experiencing that trigger. Wow, even though I had the trigger, I'm still at ease. I'm sure I experienced some distress for a bit, but that passed. And so I'm noticing myself having less fear about getting a bill in the mail, because that happened to me last week and I had some difficulty for a period of time, but I faced that and I went through it and I'm still alive. So maybe next time I won't be. And so now we start to pick up more data points, kind of like how our trauma in the past was data points, that help us kind of get some momentum going, that like this time it's going to be okay, this time it's going to be okay. And our perspective over time slowly starts to shift. And so it's kind of about like releasing the grip of trying to make these things happen. And that's why I think spirituality is really important with this, because if you can have faith, there's that saying, let your faith be bigger than your fear. It doesn't say let your faith erase your fear, right? It's that, wow, I'm noticing this experience of really intense fear, really intense grief, and I know that there's something bigger in store. I know that there's been so many times when this has happened before, and everything worked out in the end for me. And so I'm going to sit with this feeling with curiosity to wonder what's going to happen next. I'm not going to fight it. I'm going to actually create a really big, comfortable bed for it to lay in so that it can, so that it can have the space for it to be here as long as it needs. Resting into that, trusting my body to alchemize these experiences, that's how things change. They don't change by forcing them to go away. They don't change by judging thoughts or feelings and saying one is good and one is bad. They change by trusting them, trusting ourselves, and having a connection with something higher, whatever your belief system is, that trusts that that support is ultimately going to lead you through this experience, and that this experience is a divine lesson meant to be here. It's not something that happened that's cursing you, that you could have prevented, and this shouldn't be happening right now. If it's happening right now, it's happening for you. It's not happening to you. And doing this enough times over time, not only does the individual process of alchemizing your perspective in the one instance, it will alchemize your perspective on these things occurring. By these things, I just mean discomfort, unexpected things happening in your life overall, because you start to have this huge bank of information of times when you allowed the unpleasant thing to just happen. You allowed suffering to be part of the experience of life because you saw it as just as important as the things that come after suffering, the lessons, the growth, the ease, and knowing that you don't need to remove suffering to have that other experience. It's kind of like I was playing a game with a kid the other day, and I was trying to explain to them about how important it is to lose the game, because when you lose, you really appreciate the times that you win. And so we almost can have this like feeling of gratitude. I wouldn't say it's like a feeling of joyfulness or elation, but silent, maybe even grieving, fearful even gratitude. All the yucky feelings are there that our mind wants to resist, and we are like, wow, I'm grateful for this, because on a deeper level, I know, not know up here, but like know in my heart, I know that this is all perfect. And I know that I am exactly where I'm supposed to be through all of this difficulty. And I'm so grateful for my heart and my mind, my body and my soul, for all bringing me through this moment. And I know more is to come after this. And I'm just so curious about what will come next, because I know the only thing constant in life is change. So this message feels complete. If you liked this video, please like it, let me know, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment about your experience with alchemizing your perspective or something that you learned from this video that you're going to take away from it. If you're new to my channel, the way that my videos work is I pick a topic and then I just turn on my camera and I use it as a chance to channel and connect with what I believe is my connection to the divine and being able to offer those messages forth to other people who naturally connect with them. So if you connected with this message, great. If not, that's fine too. It's not for you. That's great. And so I hope that you have a wonderful day. I'm sending you so much love and appreciation for being here and sharing with this experience of me speaking this truth to you. And I look forward to experiencing more insights to bring into the awareness on YouTube in the future. All right. Have a great day. Bye.